Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, presented by the Cincinnati Business Courier, investment fraud. Seems like there are more cases in our area than ever before. We take an in-depth look. Getting inside startup guru Cincy Tech. What do they do and how do they do it? And assuming you're not still too full from Thanksgiving, how about some Queen City cookies? U.S. Bank Business Watch is next. Good morning. Welcome to U.S. Bank Business Watch. I'm Brian Patrick. On the Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, imagine placing your hard-earned dollars with an investment advisor you know and trust, only to get an email that says, sorry, we're closed. Call the IRS if you have any questions. Well, that was the scenario that played out this summer for the more than 160 clients of Glenn Guillermo. Guillermo worked out of this Walnut Hills office. Attorneys for former investors claim their clients' money vanished in a massive Ponzi scheme. They allege that Guillermo never invested the $100 million or so he received from investors, even though he told them that he was buying stocks and achieving outstanding returns.
It's a very broad spectrum of clients. Some people needed a monthly draw out of their accounts to live on. Some people who were more long-term investors would just let their investment ride.
Mr. Guillermo has cooperated with authorities in this investigation and shall continue to do so. This cooperation has included agreeing to certain requests by prosecutors and investigators.
In addition to the Guillermo case, there have been other local headlines alleging fraud. Candace Klein of Cincinnati-based SomoLend allegedly made false statements to professional investors, inflating the amount of business loans. Brenda Ashcraft, a Milford real estate investor, allegedly bilked people out of $15 million in investments. And a federal grand jury indicted her for allegedly defrauding investors in her French Manor properties. State Rep Peter Beck of Mason and another local man, John Fussner, are accused of scamming investors out of more than $200,000. Beck was CFO, and Fussner was president of Christopher Technologies. Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins spent a lot of time digging into this story. He joins me now in the studio with more on why so many fraud allegations seem to be surfacing right now. Steve, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Brian.
So is there more fraud, or are they just finding out about more fraud?
Well, it's a little of both, actually. There is an uptick in the number of cases. That's what regulators told me. But also they're increasing their efforts, and thus they're catching them more, so we're all finding out about them more often.
So what are the people with the responsibility to do something about this doing about it?
Well, a lot of things. The Ohio Division of Securities has increased their efforts. They say they've stepped up their intentions to get more criminal charges in these cases. And the U.S. Attorney General's office locally actually added a financial fraud unit a couple of years ago. They saw an uptick in this stuff happening right in the wake of the financial crisis, and they said, hey, we need some more people to be dedicated just to this kind of stuff. So they're doing a lot of things. They're also working with local law enforcement authorities a lot more often. And the more comfortable those guys get with these kind of crimes, the more often they're able to charge people.
I have to admit, I'm one of those that doesn't keep a real close eye on my investments. I believe I'm with a respectable firm. What can we do to prevent this from happening to us?
Well, first of all, you are far from in the minority on that. Most people don't watch this stuff as closely as they probably should, and people just don't have the time to do it. That's why they hire an investment advisor. First of all, trust your instincts. One of the sayings people have is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and that is almost always correct. The other thing along those lines is that a lot of times there have been a few cases cases regulators told me about where somebody's relative, an older person's nephew, just said something sounded fishy, and they were correct. So also you can look up a lot of regulatory licensing and things like that. Organization called FINRA has something called Broker Check online. You can get a lot of information that way about whether people have the right licenses.
There's a lot of good information in your story. I want to encourage all of you to read it in the print edition and online. Steve, we appreciate you. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, Kroger is still interested in opening a downtown Cincinnati store. CEO David Dillon recently told our reporter, Steve Watkins, that the key is ensuring that a downtown location is economically viable. Dillon said the last thing the community would want is a store that's not viable. That's a quote from him. Dillon also said he had nothing new to say about rumors that Kroger could be interested in the soon-to-be vacant Saks Fifth Avenue store on 5th Street downtown. Let's talk about cookies. Queen City Cookies is branching out from its famous namesake and Schnecken. Queen City Cookies has added a number of Cincinnati restaurant and baking veterans to its staff. The business has added a wholesale bakery in the former refectory building or rectory building of the old St. Pius Church in Northside. The small retail area for Queen City Cookies has been expanding to include 2 seating areas, a full coffee bar, and expanded pastry case with sweet and savory pastries, as well as other new opportunities.
The wonderful thing about the retail bakery that we have is it's given us the opportunity to form new partnerships in the community. We've partnered with Matisano's Gelato, and I'm very excited about that.
Peggy Shannon says Matisano's has even added a cinnamon maple Schnecken flavored gelato. How about that? Another partner, Doug Faulkner, former co-owner of Take the Cake, has created a Crow-Schnecken. That's a marriage of a croissant and a Schnecken. Sounds good. Well, entrepreneurial endeavors like Queen City Cookies often need investors to get help to build and grow their business. We featured Cincy Tech CEO Bob Coy and many of the startups supported by Cincy Tech in print and here on the program in the past. Well, Local 12 news anchor Tiffany Wilson recently took an in-depth look at what Cincy Tech does for startups and how they do it.
Mention monsters and road trips, typically the plotline for a Hollywood horror comes to mind. But not inside this downtown office. Here at the Cincy Tech headquarters, Chore Monster and Road Trippers represent just a small sample of its investment portfolio.
Mostly we invest in IT and life sciences.
When Bob Coy moved to Cincinnati to lead Cincy Tech 8 years ago, he says local startups had a hard time raising enough cash. That's why he helped transform Cincy Tech into the public-private partnership of investors that it is today. The basic strategy is this: give companies that show progress access to a couple $1 million over a 2-year period while they receive the guidance of Cincy Tech personnel. To date, Cincy Tech has invested in 55 companies.
We've invested $18 million of our capital, and another $220 million has been invested by individuals and institutional venture capital funds.
With startup Assurex Health now more than 160 employees strong, Cincy Tech's starting to see dividends.
Most startup companies don't really start to create a lot of jobs until the 5th year, when they hit the growth stage.
Chore Monster's only 2 years old, and it employs about a dozen people.
There's a lot of people that have put a lot of effort into growing startup culture, the ecosystem as a whole, venture funding in the city, and we are a direct byproduct of that.
Startup Cloud Takeoff used Cincy Tech funding to create 10 new jobs.
But I tell them they're doing the Lord's work, because for an entrepreneur, they really are. I mean, they bring more than just connections and additional money beyond their investment. They bring expertise and insight.
Altogether, Cincy Tech supported companies have added 451 jobs to the tri-state at an average salary of $71,000.
20 years from now, 100% of all net new jobs in our region may be created by companies that aren't even born yet or that are in the process of being born today.
If that holds true, Cincy Tech is key to Cincinnati's long-term economic growth.
We have a lot going on in this region. We have a lot of opportunity, a lot of good ideas. Now we just need people to come and take a look at it and help us to build this out.
Coy says Cincy Tech's next goal is a startup's exit, either by acquisition or IPO, freeing up investors' money to sustain the entrepreneurial cycle and support the next big thing.
If you have a good idea, contact Cincy Tech.
Downtown, Tiffany Wilson, Local 12 News.
Great story. Thank you, Tiffany. Cincy Tech is supported by more than 24 foundations, corporations, municipalities, and individuals, as well as the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, the University of Cincinnati, Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, and Ohio Third Frontier. Well, today's the day the new mayor and city council are sworn in. John Cranley will take the official oath of office today, along with 6 returning members of council and new council members Kevin Flynn, Amy Murray, and David Mann. Last week, Mayor-elect Cranley announced that David Mann will be his vice mayor.
We got a lot of work to do. What I've promised John is I'll give him my best counsel and help him in any way I can. And as he suggested, when we disagree, we'll disagree with respect and go forward. We sure have a lot of work to do, and I can't wait to get started.
Great to see David Mann back at City Hall. He served on council from 1974 to 92. He was mayor from 1980 to 82 and again in 1991. David Mann will be sworn in later today as vice mayor. He will join us in the studio a little later in the program. And during this Thanksgiving week, we'd really like to recognize those who work every day to do the Lord's work. Here at the new Lord's Gym at 18th and Vine Streets in Over the Rhine, several businesses are helping to feed the body and the spirit. Some who come here are addicts. Most are homeless, helpless, and hungry.
We let them know, that hope is available. To get up, believe again, go do what you need to do. Go put in resumes, go knock on some more doors, and do whatever it takes to transition back into life again. Without a purpose, you have no reason to live. We give them purpose. We teach them to not be takers, but to be givers. We believe everybody should be effective and fruitful and to give back.
Businesses support the Lord's Gym with food donations, including JTM, Little Caesars Pizza, Chipotle, and the Phoenix Restaurant. Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, a big downtown law firm has a new Chicago connection and reimagining the Bengals logo.
To sign up today.
Here's some news you may have missed if you're not reading the Business Courier online every day or following us on Facebook and Twitter. Cincinnati law firm Taft, Stettinius & Hollister is merging with a Chicago firm. The merger with Shefsky and Freilich has been in the works for about 2 years. Thomas Terp, Taft's managing partner, says he is extremely important strategically because Taft's mission is to be the preeminent law firm in the Midwest. Terp says that's pretty darn hard to be without a significant presence on the ground in Chicago. So what would the Bengals logo look like if they belonged to the European League instead of the National Football League? 6 designers in Minneapolis have taken on a challenge to redesign all of the NFL logos as if they were European soccer teams. Take a look at the design for the Bengals. If you'd like to see the logos for some of the other teams, you might be sure to check out our website. Kind of fun. Well, in this morning's U.S. Bank Economic 360, with all the focus on the finishing year strong and the pending excitement about the holiday ahead, we know it's not too early to begin to look forward as in beyond the bowl games and into 2014. The growth this year has been slow, the market's strong, and Washington frustrating for many Americans. So we thought it would be helpful on your long holiday weekend to peer into 2014 and provide a forecast on what might be expected for the business environment in the months ahead and the quarters ahead. We are joined by our Jim Russell, our U.S. Bank Senior Equity Strategist, to share in his perspective. Good morning. Happy holiday weekend.
Same to you, Brian.
Good to have you with us. So we've heard a lot about the slow recovery for the consumer. As we look ahead into 2014, what trends do you see happening here?
Yeah, a couple of different things I think are on tap for 2014. You know, unemployment has been a very emotional topic for most Americans. I think you, I, everyone knows someone who's gotten caught up in the unemployment situation. You can see a graph of unemployment here. We do think that unemployment continues to drift down, which of course is a good thing. We're looking at something about, let's call it 6.5% unemployment by the end of next year. Now, consumer retail sales has also been a topic. Here at holiday season, we're thinking retail sales will be up about 3.9%. As you can see from the graphic here, really retail sales have been very strong for a long period of time with a little bit of pause during the economic crisis. We do think that continued strength in home prices, unemployment dropping, low gasoline prices, and low interest rates will tend to increase the growth rate for the United States, perhaps to as much as 2.9% by the end of next year. Right now we're tracking at about 1.7, 1.8.
So what about the all-important profits for companies? What themes do you see here?
We see also a little bit of nuance as we go into 2014. This is probably the key driver for the unemployment rate coming down. We do see company profits remaining pretty strong. We're looking for a 9% profit increase 2014 versus 2013. We think companies will hire people increasingly as we move through 2013. We think the profits for the S&P 500 will tend to be about $119 per share again, compared to about $110 per share this year. So we can see that stair step up just a little bit. Again, you will also see the hangover from the financial crisis in maybe the 2 or 3, 4 years back.
You've done a great job of keeping us in touch globally. We've talked a lot about Europe and China.
Right.
What are the global themes as we look forward to 2014?
Yeah, Brian, we do think that the global picture is very, very important. About half of S&P 500 revenue is domestic. About half of it is non-domestic, meaning it's being driven by countries outside our borders. We do think that the global growth profile also looks a little bit more buoyant for 2014. We're looking at maybe something in the 3.5% to 4% range for global growth next year. Again, a nice comparison to slow trends this year. We think the key there is that Europe has emerged from recession. 0.4% negative growth this year, looks like 1% next year. Europe is the largest economic entity on the face of this planet, so that matters quite a bit.
All right, on this Thanksgiving weekend, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to you and U.S. Bank. We appreciate you, Jim.
Great to be with you.
All right, still ahead on U.S. Bank Business Watch, a conversation with former mayor and incoming vice mayor David Mann. We hope you're enjoying what's left of the holiday weekend, and we thank you for joining us for the U.S. Bank Business Watch and our Business Insight this morning. As we told you earlier, Cincinnati's new mayor and city council will be sworn in later today at City Hall. There are a lot of contentious issues facing the new leadership, with the division on the streetcar project being at the top of that list. Mayor-elect John Cranley has pegged a well-known name at City Hall to help him lead the city of Cincinnati. David Mann will be sworn in as a city council member and vice mayor today. He was first elected to council in 1974 and is returning after more than 20 years as a private citizen. David Mann joins Business Courier publisher Jamie Smith in our studio to talk about his return to council. David and Jamie.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for being here today.
Sure,
David.
Jamie.
First off, congratulations on winning your seat.
Thanks.
And secondly, congratulations on being named vice mayor.
Thanks, I
Looking
think.
forward to this. Exactly. I do have to ask, though, Harvard degree, tour in the Navy, Harvard law degree, 18 years on council, 3 of those years as mayor, House of Representatives, successful law firm. Why come back to city council?
Well, the answer is what happens at City Hall is very important, and I think I can make a contribution. All of my kids and grandkids live in the city. In some ways, there's nothing more important to them than the success of the city, and if I can be a part of making the city successful, then I've accomplished something. Plus, I've always liked public service. I think it's very important. I think it's important that all of us care about what happens at government at all levels. And so the voters embraced me, and I'm very grateful for that and humbled, and here we go.
Well, we sure look forward to having the experience on council. What do you think of the events that have happened since the election, you know, with the parking overturning and now, of course, the streetcar saga continuing? What are your thoughts? Where are we going to go?
Well, I've never seen a 30-day period. It'll be 30 days or so by the time by today. Quite like this. And it tells you something about the campaign, in which the parking deal and the streetcar project were very contentious issues that were on the minds of the voters throughout the city. I was on the campaign trail for 9 months, and for 9 months the first question that people asked me was not why you're running or what's your vision for the city, but how do you feel about the streetcar? So here we are.
Yeah. Do you think there are going to be obviously a lot of changes in the events here? I know this week P.G. Sittenfeld, in fact, has come out and said that, he will not vote to stop the streetcar. Obviously, there's one or two important people on council that's going to probably decide what happens from here on out. You see a lot of things.
Well, I think what I would like to see happen is that the new council, as soon as we get down to business, which probably won't be until tomorrow, get a true handle, an accurate handle, an objective handle on the difference cost-wise between continuing the project or canceling the project, and that will allow us to make a sensible, rational decision. We have to, in that formula or that analysis, we have to take into account the fact that there is an operating subsidy of $4 million or more for the life of the project, and you have to take out the present value of $4 million a year forever into account somehow. Now there is some talk, which I think is very helpful, that maybe we can find a way to shift that $4 million away from government, away from our operating budget, away from police and fire and community centers and all the rest, and perhaps to the property owners that are going to be the chief beneficiaries of the streetcar. That's an interesting thing to explore.
Well, it sounds like that was kind of the underscore of what PG said, was he won't stop it, but he is looking at a special improvement district or something like that to help fund that.
So I think the question is whether that can be brought together quickly enough. Now, the problem with not stopping it, however, is that we continue to spend $50,000 a day. And if this process of review, this process of finding revenues for the operating cost stretches out too much, then we get further and further down the track, so to speak, and it makes it even harder to say, wait a minute, we can't keep going. Right. So I would have preferred, I do prefer, to find a way to stop, make our decision, and then move forward from there, one way or the other.
That makes sense. Well, regardless of what most people think, there is a lot of other things on your agenda than a streetcar, and everything that I've heard about your past records screams fiscally responsible. Well, so it makes me, as a publisher and as a citizen of Cincinnati, feel good that you're going to be on there to kind of help them lead in that way.
We cannot continue to spend money we don't have. We can't continue to find fixes such as selling a precious asset, the parking meters, the parking garages, or other items just to get through another year or two. That's got to stop.
Well, we look forward to seeing how everything goes, and hopefully we can get you back on the show in a month or so.
I'd love to.
And see how the first month went.
Look forward to your following us. I'm sure you will.
Guys, sure will. Thanks for being here today. Jamie. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this morning for U.S. Bank Business Watch. We'll be back next Sunday and each Sunday morning, 6:30 in the morning here on Local 12, 10 a.m. on the CW. For more business news all during the week, visit the Business Courier online. Sign up for our daily emails. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The address is CincinnatiBusinessCourier.com. For all of us on U.S. Bank Business Watch, I'm Brian Patrick. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend.